Monero Alt Price Prediction, the privacy coin that the Darknet loves. But why? Did you know that 99% of Darknet markets rely on a single cryptocurrency and it's not altcoin? Exactly, Monero, the king of privacy coins, has been proving its worth for over 10 years, and that in secrecy. But now the question is, why does it remain a hidden gem for most investors? In the next few minutes, I'll break down why Monero's unbreakable technology, PUX, is not just for the underworld, but a hidden gem with extreme potential. Stay tuned. At the end, I'll show you a statistic that will completely change your perspective on Monero. Monero is the future of financial freedom. So, what exactly is Monero? Monero is the leading privacy coin known for absolute anonymity since 2024. With unbreakable technology like ring signatures and stealth addresses, Monero protects your transactions. From prying eyes, perfect for anyone who truly values privacy, not a gimmick, decentralized and loved by the Darknet experience. Monero is more than just an altcoin. If you're new to my channel, I analyze altcoins using 20 metrics, real numbers, data, and facts. In the end, we come up with a result in percentage, showing how strong the altcoin is from 0 to 100%. And then there are 3 scenarios, so you are fully informed about this altcoin. Then we move directly to the first point, the market capitalization. Monero is ultimately a high cap altcoin, so massive growth like with mid or low cap altcoins is no longer possible. Nevertheless, Monero has a lot of potential. How much potential? We'll get to that later. But first, I have some important facts for you. In this area, definitely 6. With 100% in circulating supply, Monero is really at the top. That's why in this area also an 8. How strong is Monero's roadmap actually? Ultimately, the roadmap is community-based. In 2019, they announced and introduced RandomX. In 2018, bulletproofs. All in all, they have steadily worked through their roadmap and are very reliable in that regard. That's why they also get solid. 7 here. How strong is the Monero team? Monero is open source, which is extremely important to understand, so it has no founder and no CEO. It is developed by hundreds of community members, so it's decentralized. This naturally has some advantages, but it also has some disadvantages. The disadvantage is, of course, that a central team that is really focused has some advantages in implementation. However, the decentralized advantages are, of course, that development increasingly moves towards the community. In this area, definitely a solid 6. What narratives do they serve? Naturally, in the end, the narrative of protecting privacy. This is especially important in today's times where data protection is extremely important. And ultimately, with the CBDCs that might come in the future, especially in Europe, where everything is presented extremely transparently, Monero is of course advantageous here. Therefore, they have an extremely strong narrative. Oh, what problem does Monero solve? As already mentioned, it solves the problem that ultimately, at the moment, there is not enough privacy in the area of finance. On the contrary, more and more needs to be disclosed, more and more information needs to be shared, especially in the crypto sector, but particularly in banks. Everything is extremely transparent, which has advantages but also disadvantages, in my view, more disadvantages. Here is the advantage of Monero, that it is completely anonymous. They also have the advantage over other blockchains that they are not as transparent, like for example Altcoin, where ultimately all transactions can be traced. As I said, don't get me wrong, transparency does have some advantages, for example with Altcoin. But especially in some areas, you simply don't want to disclose how many coins you have sent from here to there. And this is where Monero comes into play. That's why it's also strongly 0. Then sustainability. What does it look like there? They have randoms here. That is essentially CPU energy friendly. In this area, they are solidly positioned. Then how does it look with investors? How high is your capital? In the end, they have survived 11 years in several markets. So they are extremely solid, positioned. They essentially don't have large investors here, but they don't really need them in that sense. In this area, hence neutral Fritz. Then what about the competition? We have Zcash here, but also Dash. However, since Monero has been on the market for so long, they naturally have some advantages, therefore also strong. Then how are they positioned in marketing? Here, they are not so well positioned, but simply because they don't invest much in marketing efforts. As mentioned, they are decentralized, more community-based, and essentially grow organically. But Mainstream adoption has not yet fully arrived. In that area, only 4. Stop. If you appreciate such in-depth analyses, feel free to leave a like, it supports my channel. Thank you very much for that. Now let's continue directly. How simple is the idea of Monero? In essence, it is easy to understand. It is a cryptocurrency that is anonymous, essentially focusing on privacy. Therefore, they are easy to understand. What is Monero's long-term vision? In essence, they don't have a long-term vision in that sense. They naturally want to continue adapting, and gaining more users. And privacy is, of course, the focus. However, since they are community-based, they do not operate like a centralized altcoin. Nevertheless, privacy is extremely important for the future, hence SESI. Then they are deflationary, having a maximum supply. In essence, they have already reached a cap, which is naturally positive. However, they are not deflationary, but the inflation is low and definitely predictable. This naturally supports investors. In this area, solid SESI. Fully diluted market capitalization, how is it? It shows that they are not overvalued, which is very positive. Then how is the liquidity? The indicators show that they are extremely liquid, which is very positive. Strong 9. Then how was the token distribution at the beginning? Was it fair? And yes, it was extremely fair. That is, of course, mega positive. In this area, strong 9. Then how does it look with the top coin holders? Are there many top coin holders who could dump their tokens in the end? Due to the emphasis on privacy, I don't have too much data here. But the data I found shows that there aren't too many large whales, which is positive. Therefore, the area strength 8. Then what is the utility or the use of Monero, the Monero token? They naturally have a strong utility in the area of privacy. Otherwise, they have no advantages. Nevertheless, the privacy utility alone is worth it. Therefore, strength 8. Then, the community. How strong is it? It is very passionate, but it is a niche community. Less hype-based, but very loyal. Therefore, 7. Then what events, what updates are coming this year? There are no further major updates for this year announced. This is, of course, suboptimal because altcoins are always hyped when they make the news due to some updates. But Monero is based on privacy. In that area, therefore, neutral. 5. And then we come to the result. 72% is really solid. Monero is the undisputed king. Of the privacy coins, it has been on the market for a long time, with a strong 72% rating and an unbreakable Noah technology. Monero shows massive potential in the long run. However, regulatory hurdles could still pose a problem. What do you think? Is Monero your next favorite? Feel free to write it in the comments, I would be interested. Let's move on to price scenarios. If Monero performs poorly, $271 would be realistic. However, if it performs significantly more optimistically, $569 would be possible. With further increasing adoption, as more people value their privacy and discover Monero, then it could already reach over $1,000. And if the entire crypto market grows massively and privacy becomes increasingly important as a result, especially, and for example, if Europe really introduces the CBDCs, Monero could end up at almost $2,000. These are all just mathematical examples based on the fully diluted market capitalization. If you're now interested in Monero, I'll link it for you in the description below. The crypto base where Monero can be found. Now that you know the potential of Monero, I'll link you above to another altcoin that I have also analyzed. The analysis was extremely exciting. The price forecast is massive. You absolutely need to position yourself for the next altcoin run, Altcoin, especially in the phase where prices are rather low. Therefore, I can only say what I'm doing now and I'll link it to you above. 25. Altcoin analyses. With this video, you are perfectly positioned and can inform yourself excellently.